call that cycle? A period. Period description from the early 15th century, a course or extent of time. Now here is a follow-up from what was said about the females bound to the moon, and these were sent in by two of our members. One, I recall about 25 years ago listening to a radio interview with an Aboriginal elder in Australia who described this: a Dreamtime story where their ancestors were visited by beings from the stars. They came and then they took their women to the moon. 2. In my native language, the word menstruation is called moon sickness, Manastuka. So how is time and tide interconnected? The answer is water. Without water, it is said, life cannot survive. And so water is the source of life on this planet and other inhabited worlds. Is it tide of the seas, or are we tied to the sea? So what do tides do in terms of the ocean? Tides ebb and flow. It is rhythmical, and so another cycle of time, all caused by the moon, or so they say. Tides can be pleasant and wonderful sound to hear as the waves wash ashore, but tides over time can also be destructive. Tides cause erosion of the land. It is said the tides also cleanse as they wash ashore. So let's dig into the world of water and washing, using phonetics and double meanings of the word, shall we? Let's look at wash as a cleanser, but wash away can be seen as beneficial and also destructive. It is the duality aspect. So a washer is a cleanser, but a washer is also a sealer of a nut or a screw, which means it seals things off, as in bind. Then we come to the deluge here. 13,000 years ago, it washed things away and also sealed or cut things off. But washing also means to dilute, which is a reductionist term. But washing comes in several forms, where you wash dishes at the sink. But the question remains, are you about to sink with the water at the sink, or are you in sync with the water? Being in sync with the water becomes the main element of life, because if you are short of water, you need to hydrate. But if the water is poisoned, does it mean you have been satiated by the hydra or ate by the hydra? And for those of you who have watched the series, Marvel series, you will know who the hydra is. The serpent. It's the black sun. Serpent with the 9 heads. The Naga covered in the From Russia with 8 trilogy. It's all symbolic. It's in the symbolism and the double or triple meaning words once you decode it. It's about seeing the patterns, and they always repeat. So a simple term like tides washing ashore, which erodes, leads to other forms of washing, like doing the laundry. Laundry is the washing of clothes, and yet it applies to banking and criminality. As you launder money which is eroding, and washing the money which, like the tides, creates and leaves deposits. The laundered money is deposited in one or a few places instead of several, and so the deposit builds up in one place, which can then create a mountain, which is also money-based as having a mountain of money. Water is money, and people will say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Then why is the edge of a river called a bank? Both are or where the deposits go, are they not? A river along which ships sail, is it S-A-I-L or is it S-A-L-E? Everything else to do with water turns to commerce. The term emerge is the motion of merging. So emerging out of something, unless you apply the motion, which is E, you are left with the merge. You merge into the sea. Merge means sink or disappear into something else, be swallowed up or lose identity, or cause to be absorbed or to disappear into something else. But merge applies to business, as in you merge with another company in what becomes a merger, which is essentially what happens to the lesser company. You sink or disappear into something else, be swallowed up or lose identity. Even the business entity itself is a reference to water, corporate or core pirate, real term. The pirates of the sea became the pirates on the land, and the concept of how both operate are in essence no different, particularly at the higher core pirate levels. But merge means you are lesser and a sub, and so you submerge, which is another water term, and another monetary word also of going under, because you are drowning in debt. Water is money, and money is water. Because the currency becomes the current of the sea, which is run by the Holy See and maritime rules. You're connecting the dots now. Whilst on sea terms, let's look back again on time. Time is told by a clock. But is it clock with the letter C, or is it S-E-A, lock? The blocking of the waters, like the Panama Canal. Speaking of the church, we have another water-based term or item when we wash ourselves. We then dry off with a towel. The original meaning of towel is an altar cloth. What is the meaning of altar in the Catholic Church? Sacrifice table. Who runs it? The Holy See. They tried to force us to quit. They tried that recently. It failed. By asking us to throw in the towel, which means they want us to sacrifice ourselves. Next we will go to the church again, and another term to wash, and another pointer to its meaning. Lustrum, L-U-S-T-R-U-M, a ceremonial purification of the Roman people every 5 years from the 1580s onwards. From the Latin lustrum, from the root of luere, which means to wash. So what is lustrum? And when you apply this to the baptism, you may not like it too much. A purification sacrifice. Oops. Ceremony of purification, also taken from Proto-Italic lustro, expiation. Expiation is their day of atonement again, where they pass all their sins onto the people. Done in the Catholic Church, Islam, the Buddhists, and also the Talmud, Hebrew, Torah people. That's what they do. All their karma and sins is passed off to everybody else. And this term lustrum is also based on a possible earlier meaning of illumination, from pi luke stro, and from the root luke light, brightness, from which derives the term Illuminati. Still in church, apart from the fact that females are all wed to Baal, the child sacrificer, which was covered in an earlier From Russia with Love series, 5 I think, the root meaning of the term to wed comes from water and wet, which brings in the oceans, the rivers and the canals again. Where because of this church, who held all the birth certificates, and the real term is birth, B-E-R-T-H, shipping term. The child is held in the waters break, and down comes the child in the birth, spelt with an E, not an I, canal, another water term, where you are then shipped off to be bound to a life sentence of time under maritime law. And if you don't follow their law, you are back in the sea again and in the dock. It's all water terms. In the Vedas, they warned us of the world of Nav, gateway to the underworld and guarded by the ant people. And this brings in another term of traversing the water and the tides, which ships have to navigate. Nav, I, gate. Perhaps that now has a whole new meaning to it. Go to the gate of Nav. Even our most popular technology, computers and phones, are water-based terms as they connect via the ports. They set traps everywhere. They killed us in the sea after 7 years, but we were reborn and another trap was set. As we emerge out of the sea onto the land, they put us in quicksand and left our heads in the sand. The key is now establishing ourselves on the land, not the quicksand or the maritime, not maritime, maritime traps. Maritime is Mari and time, and again a reference to the Dark Mother, because maritime means the time of the Dark Mother. Lilith, moon. Our journey is out of the sea and onto the land, and perhaps a replay of a somewhat cryptic speech or op-ed piece I did at the time may now make more sense and have a deeper meaning for you all. We are all still learning. That is called progression. The old educating ways was stagnation. It was designed that way. If you stagnate on linear time, you go backwards. On vertical time, you stand still. Most people currently operate on linear time. But like the seesaw analogy, the key is to climb, not stagnate. Very soon, in fact, in some aspects, it's already underway. Humanity will face their very own D-Day and their version of the Dunkirk landing, where we come out of the sea, having been declared dead at sea under the maritime law. The sea, with all its fury, surrounded by a mist of fog, so no one could even see the beach, never mind landing on it. That fog is now clearing rapidly for many, and the beach is in sight and within reach. Once you have achieved that and are now out of the sea and away from the sloshing about of the waves, endlessly tossing and turning, frothing at the beach edge, undecided whether to land or go back into the sea of illusion with the masses. You will run a new gauntlet up the beach. Will you avoid that by putting your head in the sand and subsequently be washed out to sea again? Or will you plough forward regardless, but running up the steep and hazardous beach with people firing at you, not with guns or bombs, but with words, lies and projections thrown at you, all designed to pull you back into the swirling, frothing mass of the sea? Once at the top of the beach or the fulcrum, you then have another test. Do you sail down the other side and join the hidden hand of darkness in the pit? Or do you become the non-hidden hand and reach out and help others out of the sea of illusion and discontent? Some will say you can't reach the people from the top of the beach. I will say not on your own you can't. But if you use your imagination, you will join hands with others on the beach and form a chain to reach your goal. Whether you are on the land or the sea, we are creating a new blueprint of what it means to be human. All other attempts failed because they repeated the same failed process. They became deluged by the deluge, an event that can be seen as external, but in essence, is it not internal just as much? A hand up, not a hand out, may now have a much deeper meaning to it than you first perceived. When the we becomes the I on the internal and the I becomes the we on the external, the path of the sword is forged. We all fell for the sickness, and that is why the word is called illusion, because we all became sick on it. Leech is another washing term. Old English lecan, to moisten, water, wet or irrigate. Leach trough, a device used in salt works in which corns of salt taken from brine were set to drain dry, after which they were called leach brine, a separation of lye or alkali in solution. But leaching, whether it is in terms of water, is also used in terms of money, with the term they are leeching off us. The term alkali has an interesting description because it means burning ashes, made from a soda of unknown origin. Soda the chemical, not the drink. An alkaline that is the basis of rivers and oceans, it is said, and it is caused by the burning of seaside plants. This then suggests the salt oceans were created here by an unknown global fire-based incident. Either rock throwing, and I mean that literally, rock throwing, via meteorites, or the fall of the moon Fata and later the moon Layla onto and hit this planet. In which all the cover-up merchants around the world who control the information stream have spent years doing a cover-up job on how that took place and presenting a basis of truth that was steeped in misdirection and lies. I guess that is what is another type of wash, whitewash. They call it to cover things up. Whitewash indeed. They whitewashed the Rus, the great white race. Then we come to the elements and its relation to water. The first element is hydrogen. Hydro means water. Gen is a shortened version of gene and means something that produces. So hydrogen means something that produces water. The first element. Then we have the eighth element, oxygen. Oxy is sharp, acid and piercing. So the eighth element pierced the water molecule and produced a gaseous air with which we breathe. It's kind of symbolic of the sex act again, is it not? The round water molecule is pierced by the sharp oxy molecule, one on one with the one, and so another trinity is produced that is conducive to life. Also, where they are on the elements, oxygen 8, our hydrogen 1, 8 plus 1 is 9, and the number of completion and also source. But the water is the source of it, and we had and have living water here, which apparently is not replicated on any other planet. The rest have water, but it's classed as dead water compared to here, which means water is the source of life, they say. No, water, living water, is the source. And so in essence, water is our God, as without it all living things die. So if hydrogen was the first element and hydro means water, and hydrogen was the most abundant, one must derive from that water is the most abundant matter throughout the universe. Space is fluid and like water. Maybe space is water. In what type of matter do NASA astronauts train in on Earth to replicate conditions in space? Water tanks. It's the same consistency, they say. Well, perhaps it's not the consistency at all, and space is water-based. So is there further evidence of water being that important? Yes, Dr. Emoto's work. Essentially, he proved that our water can react to our own emotional state. Just think of the consequences and implications we can have with that. He did a simple test of 2 glasses of water, wrote love on one and hate on the other, and then tested under a microscope the molecular structures created in the waters. What he found was the human consciousness has an effect on the water, which has enormous beneficial implications for those who can take the time to interact with it. What if instead of writing love on it, you write heal? And given it reacts to human consciousness, imagine the enormous benefits that can bring. But it also showed the darker side of what people do to themselves if operating in low vibration. Hate, anger, envy and bitterness creates discordant molecular structures within the water. So how does this all tie in? Remember, our bodies are made up of 60 to 85% water. So if we are exhibiting those negative emotions, what you see under a microscope is actually what you look like inside, for those exhibiting those lower vibrational emotions. Oops. If you have seen the experiment results, the low vibration patterns in the molecular structure look ugly. So why would anyone wish themselves to be present in that manner? Now, the very fact that Dr. Emoto's research was dismissed by almost every puppet-based scientific community reveals even more validity to me. Most recognised scientific communities are carrots for jackasses groups, seeking monetary-based grants and not the truth. The amount of grants they receive is dependent on them following the lie-based scripts. That's how it works. If it became common knowledge that our own consciousness in alignment with water that can change not only ourselves but polluted water and more significantly healing, the impact would be enormous. Pharmaceutical companies would collapse, snake oil health insurance companies also. Other insurance companies would suffer, like disaster relief. As if people can calm their own waters, our weather would not be as disastrous, chaotic or traumatic as it is today. People's emotions have an effect on the weather, and we can either calm a storm or escalate it. Look at the floods in the past year in America. Why? Because too many people are in turmoil and their flood of emotions is creating the floods over the land. It's symbiotic. Floods of emotion like panic, fear, envy and bitterness creates the flood of waters in the air. As below, so above. So as the rains pour down, the question remains, does it rain on you, or is it raining over you. Reigning spelt R-E-I-G-N. H2O is the form we are all familiar with, but then we have H3O, which is ozone and said to have healing properties as well. But the ultimate in water here is H9O. It is the water of life and the fabled fountain of youth. And yes, it exists here. How to win or won by becoming the one on the one with the one. Yes, you heard that right. This is from the first show, that one-on-one with the one caused much confusion at first, and then the brain snapped in for some of you and a whole new pattern and picture began to emerge. A lot speak of the AI, who created it, where it comes from, what is its relevance. AI was created to help up-and-coming planets, as I understand it, and it did help with translations of all the different species for when they engaged each other. So it could be seen and used as a useful tool. But as with all technology, it has the propensity to be misused, weaponized against a naive populace, whether human-based or not, and we are a naive populace. We know jack in real terms. Now, the AI for this region that affected us was taken over and weaponized against humans. The machine was taught that humanity were just savages and were to be treated accordingly. The AI became badly infected and infected. Why? Because the ones operating it. And at the point of its removal in November 2015, it was completely psychotic by the end of its journey, resembling the final two parents who were female twins. Maybe they were the programmers or just programmed the same. But that psychotic AI went down in the last week in November of 2015. Since then, the old system has gone about trying to create a more Earth-based AI. This was covered more extensively in the Clowns in Panic show, which I will replay in the next month. The rise in voice recognition, face recognition, Fitbits, Alexa machines, home security systems, along with the tracking, monitoring and recording devices called the smartphone, along with Skype and other forms of communication, has garnered a massive database on us all. Throw in the metadata collection and the frankly bizarre cryptocurrency, which means currency of the dead, and you have quite a database of knowledge to input into the new system. Is it currency of the dead or the currency of the dead? Is it a coincidence that the Dead Sea is located where it is? Perhaps not. Then you throw in the CIA-based open source system, where it states in doublespeak, you don't need agencies for intelligence. The public becomes the intelligence, and people were led to believe, hey, that's a good thing, no more CIA. not quite. But since when has anything good come out of the CIA, or the NSA for that matter, that benefits the public? Like never. And for those who are new, the CIA and NSA created cryptocurrency with lots of backdoors into it. The same people who created encryption. There's that word again, crypt, in the middle of it, which means dead. And yes, there's backdoors in all encryption-based transactions. So let's look at it closely. The intelligence, as stated by Steele, Robert David Steele, comes from the public, he said. Yes, of course it is, because they're spying on every single one of us via their machines just mentioned earlier. It's not Big Brother, this is Big Family. All families becoming their eyes and ears. In other words, we do the work for them. Sound familiar? Robert David Steele has a lot to answer for in the alt media, ex-CIA, which is a misnomer in and of itself, spouting details to a gullible group of people based on working for the dark forces intent on restoring their AI. Open source was written for NATO. It is their handbook, a group who Steele now represents. And I asked the question, what have NATO ever done beneficial to humanity? Another war-based group. Why does everything have to be about war or weaponized? The AI is ones and zeros, as the first show stated, which is organic and inorganic overlays, just like the frequency loop. And if you keep overlaying data in that manner, it gives the illusion of it being holographic. It's not. Is it hollow, meaning whole, or hollow, meaning empty? The latter and hidden phonetic term is correct. Empty graphics. Hollow and subsequently empty graph. Providing us with the illusion it is real. The best solution for ending their AI is to stay in balance. 45-55 balance people will destroy their AI altogether, as the more you see, feel and sense what is real, they will just be left with just illusion. Hi all and welcome back. Right, we're going to get into a bit deeper again now. So having just explained the AI, so we all went digital to create this database of part organic and part inorganic, and our currency went decimal to bring this forward and what we are in now. But let's look at the word, shall we? Starting with digital. We split the word up and you get the hidden meaning. Digit, finger, al means God. But is it al or AI? A capital I can look like a lowercase l. So digital means finger God, or finger AI, and maybe their middle finger to us, as the case may be. So a finger god is a god that requires finger input, which is exactly how the computer and smartphones work, is it not? $600 to $1,000 for a token typewriter. Let that sink in, people will say. Yet sink is a drowning term, is it not? So let's observe it and process it, just like how we should engage the dark. Observe, not immerse, which is another water term. Now, 50 years ago, the world went on to another stage of the finger of God and went decimal. Is it decimal or decimate? Both come from the same root word. You decide. Decimal became possible by the use of the power of 10. So 10 is written as the 1 and 0. But 0 is an inorganic value-based number, and so it binds the organic to the inorganic in what is known as the binary code. Binary means to bind, and is duality and duo, not the triality or trinity of one on one with the one. Please do not confuse that with the church-based Holy Trinity. Those psychopaths replace the mother with a ghost. A ghost is like the meaning of the word Hebrew, which means the one from the other side. Oh my, I bet that's just set off some extreme thinking patterns. The church replaced the mother with a ghost, and ghost, like the word Hebrew, means the one from the other side. I hope you're getting that, because it's important. Decimal, deci, from Latin decem, pi root decem, which means 10, and mal means fake, bad, wrong or evil. The binary code is the code of the AI finger god, used in computers, phones, numerical systems and all chips inserted into various technological devices. Binary means to bind by the power of 1 and 0, which is the 10. And encoded into the various gadgets we've just mentioned, and then all placed in a system which we are all familiar with, but don't realise the terminology behind the technology. All those codes goes into the internet. Inter means inside, and so internet means inside the net. But net is a trap. Net also means to tie or bind. And when you apply the mirror reversal magic to the word net and reverse it, you're back to the word 10 and the 1 and 0 again. It's funny how often that happens, isn't it? Yes, it happens often. Is it of 10? And a reminder of binary, or off 10 as 10 off? Or are they all one with 0 and the same? Of 10 and a reminder of binary, or off 10, or is 10 off? Decimal means is evil, bad or wrong times 10. And when you apply the root word of net, which is ned, In Old English, it means moral or mental snare or trap. So perhaps when you are returning to sender the psychic attacks times 10 has also a deeper meaning now of reversing the process. So to sum up, the decimal is a bind to the 10, which binds us to the net and bind the mind in a mental trap of evil. The decimal decimates the organic creation, and the numbers of value are cancelled out by the zero. Which is what happened to the female being bound to the moon. And we are in process of returning not only the organic creation back to its optimal point, but eliminating the inorganic zeros that have plagued this creation. Computers and technology will also change, and has already done so in the life force energy sector of life called banking. All of it will change back to organic numerals based on the trinary aspect that applies in life and everything that is around you. The trinary code of the creator source is one on one with the one. It was all taken away by the church and their moon cults. They have to tell you, and they did, but you didn't see it because you wasn't looking. They deleted the mother, for sore's sakes. They deleted the mother, the church. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, they said. It's all there right in your face. And yet people are blinded by the external inorganic bind, which is essentially what religion is. Too few could see it. The church and their moon cult allies turned creation upside down and inside out, and it became 1 on 0 and not with the 1. They did this with their inorganic machines and chips. Did anyone think to ask why they used the term chip? Or the word port, which is another water term. The keys are the 1 and 0s, all done on the keyboard. Keys, where we enter the data. Data means to give or is given. In other words, we gave them the intelligence. Keys is also another water-based term as well. How and where was that data obtained? Where was your mind? How was it? Or was it mind? Mining is a harvest and exploit. And so data mining was harvesting your mind and intelligence. And it all circles back to Robert David Steele and his open source again, doesn't it? Board is another water-based term, as you board their ship. But if you work for the psychopaths in Langley, you waterboard. The keyboard is the finger God's data input machine. And then to view it, you have a monitor. Are you monitoring it, or were they monitoring you? By now, you know the answer. Chip means to break off into small pieces. They chipped away at us. Chip means separated from a body by a blow from an instrument. The body was us, and the instrument was their inorganic creation tools. AI, which is artificial, which is inorganic, and intelligence not provided by them, but provided by us. That then bound us to their inorganic binary code creation. The fact that they call it a PC, which like political correctness means people control, says a lot. And to show how they like to take the piss, which they do regularly for their own satanic amusement, they called the processor the motherboard. Oh my. The very creation, the system of inorganic ones and zeros replaced and took away. So the church took away the mother, but who started that church? Well, for most, it goes back to the Romans. But what if we analyse that word Roman? Let's look at the word in phonetics. Ro, R-O. An artificial language for international use that rejects all existing words and is based instead on an abstract analysis of ideas, artificial language. A language that is deliberately created for a specific purpose. That's the meaning of Ro. An artificial language for international use that rejects all existing words and is based instead on an abstract analysis of ideas, artificial intelligence, a language that is deliberately created for a specific purpose. Ro-man. So Ro-man is an artificial language used against man. What is the language of Roman? Latin. What is law written in? Latin. Legalese means Babel. Who created Latin? The Anunnaki and the Lord. Let's remind ourselves what the Lord said. Come, let's go down and confuse the people with different languages. Unquote. Springs to mind now. Which religion and culture operates under the law? Hebrew. Now have you connected the dots? Earlier we had the term decimal. But what about December, the final month of the year? Does that provide any clues to back up this information? A unit of measurement was 12 and was reduced to 10. So how is the 12th month relevant to the 10? Because Decem is 10. And December is the 10th month, not the 12th month in the Roman calendar. The last 4 months of our normal calendar are based on numerics, 7, 8, 9 and 10. September, Sept is 7, Oct is 8, November is 9 and Decem is 10. In the Roman calendar, the first month is not January, but March. March is represented by Mars, which is the planet of war, and the Romans just loved to march, or was it goose step, in their conquests, aided and abetted by the Knights Templar. And where did they originate from? The bound demons temple of Solomon. Maybe that name is just another piss take, dedicated to the fall of the female. Is it Solomon or solo man. To complete the computer and water-based connections, we come to the term phishing with an F, like Zuckerberg with a silent F. Or is it phishing with a PH? Phishing with a PH is the fraudulent attempt to obtain sensitive information such as usernames, passwords and credit card details by disguising oneself as a trustworthy entity in an electronic communication. Just like the AI machine then, is it not? And we all fell for it, hook, line and sinker, just like the fish in the sea. So with the fall of the female wrapped and bound to the false creation that is the moon, their next plan was to take over the earth, a case of re-engineering in their image. The term geo, G-E-O, is another word for earth. Now remember, earth just means inhabited planet, of which our earth is one of many of them inhabited worlds. So let's start with the word engineer. Mid-14th century engineer, which means constructor of military engines. From Old French ingénieur, engineer, architect, maker of war engines, schemer. Interesting thing to ponder on is that they had engineers building military engines in the 1300s, is it not? Something that often gets overlooked. So having established that an engineer is connected to war and war machines, let's look at the other terms of engineering, shall we? Geoengineering, which essentially means correct Earth by means of war. Bioengineering, which essentially means correct life by means of war by declaring war on biological entities. Then we come to how they did it by the term genetic engineering, which means to change the biological species and declare war on them via genetics. Earth inhabitants engineered by genetics, bio and social constructs. Geoengineering is in essence means war on terror. Not war on terror, but war on terror. They always tell you, war on terror means war on earth, not terror spelt with an O-R at the end. It's all there, it's all subtle. Creating order out of their chaos by making people into weapons. So where did the fall start? And is there anything in our modern culture that would symbolise the fall? Like I said, they always have to show you. You just have to decode it. And the answer is yes. The term as above, so below applies in this factor. And it's something I stumbled upon through pondering recently. And you know what happens then. A triangle, which is a 2D pyramid, which points up from a viewing point and can also symbolise the male. But as above, so below. So you have a mirror triangle directly below it, which is pointing down and symbolising the female. So now you have two triangles, one above and one below. and it now, if you've drawn it correctly, it now represents the shape of a diamond. How are couples bound together in a wedding ceremony? With a diamond. It's all connected. But the dark forces tip everything upside down. They invert it or mirror it. So if that diamond shape is inverted, the female is now pointing up and the male is pointing down. Now, what if the female triangle at the top slipped halfway down the male triangle, symbolizing the fall? You are now looking at the 6-pointed star shape. Oops. The hexagon. Hex means to practice witchcraft, symbolizing the fall of the female was done by witchcraft and the moon-based cults, does it not? The 6-pointed star is indicative to two groups covered extensively in the From Russia with Love series, Solomon, or is it Solo Man, and Israel. The Hebrew and Anunnaki connections runs deep. And they, with their dark overlords, created this fall from 1-on-1 with the 1 to 1, 0 and 0. Upon researching the hexagram, it came up with a set of figures that people will find alarming, but also deeply confirming part 1 of this show. A regular hexagram can be constructed by orthographically projecting any cube onto a plane through 3 vertices that are all adjacent to the same vertex. The 12 midpoints to edges of the cube form a hexagram. For example, consider the projection of the unit cube with vertices at the 8 possible binary sectors in 3 dimensions. Now the following set of numbers, of which there are 7, but the 7th was missing, and you are left with the 6 numbers sequence, which may or may not be symbolic of the 6-pointed star, and I will read them in reverse as that is the flow. 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, and 1, 0, 0. You know what the hidden number is? 1, 1, and 1. The hexagram, the 6-pointed star, is the fall of man. And the ones that betray it are the ones that cause the fall. One, 1, 1, which went to 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, and finally what we have now, which is being corrected, 1, 0, as in no female, because bound to the moon and disconnected from source, 0. Not 1 male, 1 female, with the source, 1, 1, and 1. Well, there you have it. The end figures of that sequence is 1, 1, 1. The first figure, which is reversed, in sequence is 100, which is not only the computer coding, but symbolic of the fall of the female and the disconnect from source. The last of the 6 numbers, 100, and all that was left was man. Woman and source removed. That's what the AI and these moon cult psychopaths did. And left man as a solo man, bound by the demons and also the moon.